You're listening to the Young Talk podcast by First Church Young Adults.
There's those kinds of people that you just, man, you can just talk, right? So right now, Pastor Eric, we're just gonna have one of our conversations.
All right.
And they're gonna be here. We're inviting you guys to our living room. All right. So we're gonna have a candid conversation.
All right.
I did not send them any questions in advance. We're gonna kind of get them on the fly. We're gonna be candid. We're gonna be transparent. We're gonna talk about real things. And also, by the way, we may our young adult department just launched a podcast, Young Talk Podcast. Yeah. Not too long ago, I think they just hit 5 episodes. And we may or we may not, but in case we drop this on a bonus episode on the podcast, we'll just say shout out to Young Talk Podcast.
Shout out to Young Talk Podcast.
Yeah.
One more time. Shout out to Young Talk Podcast.
Yeah, let's do a little bit of a live recording. So help us out, and feel free to at the end, we may or we may not. If you have any questions, talk to your chaperone. We may have time to answer some questions at the end. But yeah. So Pastor Eric, I want to start with a really deep question. Okay, I may get you. What's man? You one of the best storytellers I know, man. Hit me with what's the most embarrassing thing that has happened to you? Whether in any kind of situation, maybe, I don't know. Just
all right.
What's one of the most embarrassing things that has happened to you?
On the platform at a camp in embarrassing. Oh gosh, I got several. I just want to know which one's not gonna make me look so much like a fool. One of the most embarrassing things that's ever happened to me is I was preaching at a camp, and I usually look at myself in the mirror before I make sure everything's good, like my shoes are tied, all that, and I preached an entire 45-minute sermon with my zipper down.
Oh man.
And every time I would storytelling, people were just laughing, and I'm like, yo, like, is my message
was it that funny?
Yeah, it wasn't that, I said a joke, and they were just they would let their laugh out in that moment, and I'm just like, yo, and it wasn't like everybody in the front was just and I'm like, I don't know what means, so I would do it right back to them, and they're just like no, and it's yeah, that might have been one of the most embarrassing things that happened to me, and the bad part is that was the first session out of 5, and it was just that was an embarrassing moment. Another one is I was preaching, and I was preaching the handheld mic, and I'm preaching, and I kind of move around quite often, and I tripped on the wire, and it was just it just was not it. So I've had some embarrassing moments. Yeah.
Well, I feel like that's how you kind of start to get to know a person is what gets them embarrassed. How do they navigate through awkward situations? But so on that vein, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? We know you're from Las Vegas. What are some hobbies? What are you into? What are some interests? What are you passionate about? What are you into?
Well, yeah, like you said, I'm from Las Vegas. I'm 27, and I've only had one job. I will say that. That's kind of my cool feature about myself. I've only had one job. My resume has one job. I was in high school, and I was an intern at our church. At the church that I serve at. From middle school all the way to high school, I was an intern, and every day I would, after school and after golf practice, and I would head to the church, and I would just intern for a good, for many years. And on the day of, graduation season is around, and at the time, my parents were the senior pastors of the church, and they're like, hey, we want to make you an offer to become get on staff at the church. And I was like, yeah, like that was like one of my greatest accomplishments, that I was able to serve for many years. And then, graduation season's around the corner, and they're like, hey, we want to put you now full time here. And that was like that's what I've been all my life. So this year, I'm going into this upcoming year, I'm going into 9 years at the same church. I got my one and only job, and like I love that.
That's awesome.
So that's what I'm really passionate about, the local church. But hobbies, I love to make coffee. Like it's as random as that sounds. Like making coffee is just I love that. It brings me peace. I'm just so into just making a cup of coffee. And other than that, I love playing golf. I know it's not the most popular sport, but golf is where
we got some golfers,
Any golfers in the house? Oh, that's what I'm talking about. All right, we got some golfers in the house. So I love playing golf. And this is like my favorite one right here. I love to be alone. That's like my favorite thing, just to be alone and just reading a book or just spending time just by myself. Is one of my favorite things to do, because I think I'm always around people, so whenever I get that pocket of being alone, I just get to hear from God clearly and just kind of clear my thoughts.
Yeah. I'm similar. Something about being alone, like being okay with being alone and like just, I don't know. I'm the same.
Yeah, I don't have FOMO like at all. Like I don't have no fear of missing out. Like, I rather miss out on everything. Like it's fine. It's okay. Like if everybody's gonna go bowling or go eat, like oh y'all can go do that. Like yes, that gives me more time to be alone. Like great, do it. Yeah, it's I definitely don't have no FOMO.
I tell my wife that like a lot of people's dreams is like to be known, right? To like that's like the average person's dream, right? I want to be known. I want people to know me. I'm like, I'm the opposite. The older I get, I just want to disappear.
Yeah,
like, get me a cabin out in the woods and get me a little garden, some chickens. Like
get you a survival kit like Daniel.
Yeah, get you a survival kit. Like, man, that sounds so awesome to me. But anyway, okay. So I got a very important question. MJ or LeBron?
Oh.
MJ or LeBron?
Man, come on, MJ any day, baby.
Okay, I think the crowd's with you.
Yeah, I know.
Any LeBron people here? Any LeBron? Okay, we got 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4. All right. Look 5 heathens in the house. Wow, we didn't have a service of deliverance in just a bit. Okay, anybody actually know who MJ is? Okay, there we go. Okay, what if we throw Kobe in the mix? MJ, LeBron, or Kobe?
MJ, Kobe, and then there's other people, and then LeBron. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, there's.
Okay, all right, Eric. I know you're a sports guy. What are you? Give me some thoughts on John Moran and the whole thing that's happening. Have you heard?
Yeah.
So some thoughts like with the decisions that were made, like from your perspective, what's going on?
See, I have one response to that, and it's your choices now, you'll get the repercussion in due season. And what happens is this, that decisions are cheap, but consequences are expensive.
Oh, that's good. Man, y'all need to write that one down.
And it's decisions are cheap, consequences are expensive. And that's for all decisions in life. What you do now will affect you in the future. Because the seed that you plant now, and especially now in a social media world, it's not even what you post, it's what others can post about you.
Yeah.
And I know we'll speak about friendship at some point, but you got to be mindful of what you do now. Because the actions that you take now with your parents, with your friendships, with your family, at school, it will catch up to you. For some, it will catch up to them immediately, and for others, it will grow. And the seed will be planted, and it will bear fruit. So be careful on the decisions that you make now. Be mindful and thoughtful, and be wise on the seed that you plant now. And I think that's what happened to John Moran.
Yeah.
I've never seen somebody that gets out of a rough situation and wants to so badly go back to a bad situation.
Yeah.
It's like people that get delivered and then they get blessed by God. And I don't want to be the super spiritual guy, but I just kind of can put it in that perspective that we come to like a youth retreat and God can free us, but then we go back home and we just want to go back and be enslaved once again.
Yeah.
And I don't see why you are gifted with such an ability and a talent just so that you yourself can dig your own grave. And I just feel that's what could happen to John Morant if he doesn't get the help necessary.
Yeah. So you touched on a little bit about friendships. So how do you identify an unhealthy friendship? So when maybe it's happened to you, maybe back when you were in high school or recently or what, how do you go and you say, okay, this friendship may not be healthy. Number one, how can I tell? How do I realize it's unhealthy? And number two is like, I love this person though. And I genuinely care for them. How do I navigate that? How do I go about that if I know this friendship is probably not the best for me, but I still care about the person?
That's a great question. You have to ask yourself, am I getting better or am I getting bitter? You see, Proverbs 27:17 says that iron sharpens iron. Is your friendship, is it making you better or is it making you go home feeling worse? See, I feel that I could love a person, I can like a person, and I can love a person, I can love a friend, but I have to realize, is that person that I love making me better? If the person isn't making me better, then it's making me stale, and ain't nobody wants to eat a stale fries, like, you know, a bag of chips that just, the air was taken out, and it's just like, the taste is there, but it's not sufficient. It's not desirable. And I think many times, although I love Lay's barbecue chips, I rather find another chip that's going to satisfy my need than to taste something that it kind of gives me pleasure, but not fully. And in friendships, you have to know what's going to make you full or what's taken away from you. Yeah. And there's another portion of scripture in Proverbs 13:20 that instructs us to walk with wise men and you will be wise, but the companion of the fools will suffer harm. You have to be mindful of what you're doing and who you're choosing to be in your circle. You see, we're very easily attracted to people that have the similar interest as us, that like the things that we like, and that's okay. But when it comes to disagreements, this is really, you know, it always mind boggles me how people, they dictate their friends based on their interests, but not based on when there's a tough situation, it's easy to let go of a friend.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they don't like this. Okay, I can replace you. That's why it's important for you to choose friends that are going to be long-lasting friends and not just replaceable friends from here to tomorrow. Not based, you see, I don't choose my friends on, I choose friends that are better than me, smarter than me, make more money than me. Why? Because I want them to be my sphere of influence. You see, you tell me who you hang out with and I'm going to tell you what kind of person you are.
Yes.
So for me, my parents always taught me, hey, hang around with people that are smarter than you, that know more than you. Don't just try to be the same. You be with people that can make you better. Because if they're not making you better, you're staying at the same level and you want to elevate yourself. And whether that's in middle school, high school, or you're a young adult, just find people that can make you better.
Yeah. See, I love that. I love that. Tell me in español, it's dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres.
Exactly.
It's tell me who you're with and I'm going to tell you what kind of person you are. I heard it this way. I heard the importance of friendships is the 5 closest people to you. The 5 closest people to you. We can start thinking about it. The 5 closest people to you will determine your health, your physical health, will determine your income financially, and will determine your attitude.
Correct.
The 5, if you sit here and think about it, the 5 closest people, if you're in high school, you're probably all broke. But if you're a little older, the 5 closest people to you, they have a similar income than you, they have similar attitude, and similar health.
Yeah.
It's the people you're around. You want to make more money? Make friends that make more money. You want better attitude? Make friends that have a better attitude. You want better health? Get friends that care about their health, that are mindful of it. So I love that. I love the thought of healthy friendships. So tell me, Eric, how have you ever had to break up with a friend? I know. Do you think there's such a thing as breaking up with a friend?
I think there's like transitions.
Transition.
Yeah, there's transitions.
Yeah. Have you ever had to have like a like maybe somebody's like, maybe you just distance a little bit, or how have you navigated that in your life with people?
I stay in my lane and they will automatically fall off the train. I don't do anything different. I just be myself. And if they don't like the way I am or the things that I deny into, they will slowly leave. Yeah. I don't stop my pace to remove somebody. Yeah. I will keep going at my pace. Yeah. And they will automatically fall. And whether they want to hop on the train or fall off the train, that's up to them. But I tend not to have these conversations like, hey man, I got to tell you, like, nah, because that will, that makes me look like and this is not like in a prideful way, but if they're not willing to run the same race that I'm running, and what I mean, and I'm not saying like to be better, but what I'm trying to say is like, if they're not willing to have the same vision that I have, or we're going in the same direction, then they're just taken away from me. And I don't want someone to halt me. I don't want someone to stop me when God has called me for something greater.
Yeah.
So when in friendships, I think you have to, number one, run at the pace of grace. And run at a consistency. Yesterday, we spoke about running with perseverance. When you're running in perseverance and connected to God, there will be people that I will automatically speak bad about you, tell you the things, what you're not doing, what you used to do, but you don't do no more. Don't stop and have a whole conversation. Hey, this is what I'm doing now. No, your actions will speak louder than your words.
Yeah.
Keep on walking, keep on running, and they will fall. And at one point, they'll be like, oh, okay, this person was true. Because sometimes we'll say like, oh, I'm going to change. That's what happens. We say like, oh, I'm going to let you go. And then you end up being the same person. And then they'll end up back in your circle because it was just voided words. It had words with no substance. So when you run with determination and run with the end in mind, say, I'm going to keep on going. And then some people are going to fall off. But trust me, God will always replace them with somebody that has the same vision as you.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like what you're hitting on is not so much, the focus isn't so much on the other person. The focus is inward. Mm-hmm. What I'm getting from what you're saying is that people are going to do what people do. Mm-hmm. I just got to stick on my lane. Mm-hmm. I got to keep walking. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, how do I find that lane? I feel like the deeper, if we go a floor deeper into our conversation, is identity. Mm-hmm. So being confident in my identity, knowing what my identity is, knowing where I'm going. You touched on it last night with vision, but let's talk a little bit about that. Like, I don't want to use this phrase because it's so overused, but like, quote unquote, finding yourself, or for lack of better words, right? I think that phrase is misused sometimes. But let's talk about that. I think if we go a little bit deeper, it's knowing, being confident, having confidence in who you are, in who God's calling you. But how do you find that? Like, how do you know? Like, is God going to talk to you? Eric Jimenez, you are to be this and that, and you are to stay away from. Like, how do you navigate that? How do you discover and find out what my direction is?
Got it. I think you find yourself, and you find who God wants you to be when God puts you in a season of isolation, of solitude. Like when He removes all your friends, that's where God has His connection one-on-one with you, and He can tell you what He's called you to be. But we're so cluttered with so many people around us, and we have that FOMO spirit that we never allow God to speak to us because we have so many other voices speaking into us. And we don't even know if it's God or a human being. And sometimes we have to mute the voices that are around us. And when you want to know yourself, you got to remove yourself. And that's hard. That's a hard one. It's hard to do that.
When you want to know yourself, you got to remove yourself.
Yeah.
That's good.
You got to remove yourself, and you have to do like, I love just not letting anybody know that I'm going to go off the grid for a little bit. And I think our problem is that I always see it on social media like, hey guys, I'm going to be off for the next 30 days.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, man. Woo.
If you need me, call me, text me, ask for my number. And like you're publicizing that you're going to go into isolation. But when you want to find yourself, you just kind of slowly remove yourself. And then people are like, hey, have you seen this person? Later on. But you don't have to publicize that you're about to go into a relationship between you and God. And the problem is that we want to bring everybody into our relationship with God. And that's cool to a certain extent. But the reality of it is to find yourself, you first have to find yourself in God. See, and how do you find yourself through God? Number one, through prayer.
Yeah.
And it might be like, well, what do I ask God? Like, God, who am I? Like, it's good, but say, God, I want to know the plans that you have for me. I want you to show me. God doesn't speak to me in the audible voice like Pastor Josh did. That kind of scares me. Like if somebody tells me like God speaks, he's like that. Like I don't know, just kind of like. God speaks to me in the most random ways to me, guys. I promise. Like I could be in my car, I could be making coffee. I get a thought, I get an idea. God just starts to show me in my thoughts. That's why it's important for you to have a barrier of protection in your mind. I would write that on your notes. That your prayer may be, God, put a barrier of protection in my mind. Because I think I shared with you guys yesterday that the enemy enters through your mind, through your thoughts, he can get to your heart. Yeah. And when he gets to your heart, he just chops up a vein and then you just become numb, cold. But when you put prayer first and say, God, I want you to put a barrier of protection in my mind, that my mind may have that isolation, that moment where I can only hear your voice. Yeah. And how do I hear God's voice? You hear God's voice by having a communication with him.
Yeah.
See, when we say pray, I see a lot of people like, and what our handicap is that he knows my thoughts. Yeah, he knows your thoughts, but he wants to hear your voice.
Yes.
How do you expect God to talk to you if you don't open up your mouth and speak to him? It's as if I were having a conversation with Josh and we're just looking at each other like, we're communicating and we can only get so much across. But when we start to speak, he begins to listen. Yeah. And the problem is that we're good at speaking sometimes, but we're bad at listening. We're good at asking God to bless us. And we're good at asking God to remove certain things in our life. But when God tells you how to do it, we just kind of reject God's voice. And God can't give you or show you who you truly are until you're willing to zip your lips sometimes and hear God. And sometimes when God speaks, it's not what you like, but it's what you need. Yeah. And that's a hard one to swallow sometimes. Because when God speaks, 99% of the time, he's going to want you to remove certain things in your life that your flesh likes, but that your spirit doesn't. And that's the battle that we have constantly. It's that the spirit can dominate the flesh. But many times we allow the flesh to overcome the spirit. But we have to be people who are led by the spirit and not led by our emotions.
Yeah. So when allowing the Spirit to lead us over our emotions, so how would you say is what are some practical? We've talked prayer, we've talked communicating with God. What are some things we can do to feed our spirit over our flesh on that daily battle of it's a daily thing of spirit and flesh. They're fighting each other. What are something for a Tuesday morning, something for a Friday night? What are some things that maybe you've done or maybe you would recommend for that battle to feed that spirit and start and beat up that flesh?
Have accountability partners.
Accountability.
Have friends who I can be who are accountable for my spiritual life.
Yeah.
Choosing wise friends. And here's an important one. Knowing that friendships are important. And number one, being a loyal friend and finding people who are loyal to you. And not sharing everything to everybody, but finding people who you can truly trust. That's our problem. The reason we get bitter is because we share too much to people who are just there ready with the knife right behind you to stab you in the back. And then when people tell you, hey, you need to find loyal friends, you're like, but I tried. No, you based yourself on, see, the people that are my accountability partners are people that we kind of don't even have the same interests. It's kind of the opposite of who I am because I know that they're going to always have my back. It's people that I can call and be like, hey, I'm going through this situation. And they'll be like, hey, I'm helping you pray through it. And it's not, the worst kind of friends are the people that tell you, hey, I'm praying for you. But you've never heard them pray for you. They just tell you that they're praying for you, but you don't even know if they really are. Some of my best friends and loyal friends are the people like, hey, I want to pray for you over this phone call. I hope you have a better day today. I hope you and your family are going to have a blessed day today. And they don't just tell me they're going to pray for me, but they actually do pray for me on the phone. I think finding people, like once again, to have a better relationship with God and finding myself, it's finding people who are getting me closer to God. Not people that are pulling from me, but that are pouring into me.
Yeah. That's gold. That is gold. Okay, well, I want to do a little change of gear, change lane a little bit. Let's talk about, for a few minutes, about dating.
Dating, wow.
Let's talk about dating.
Wow.
I know.
Kevin dimmed the lights.
Kevin dimmed the lights.
Kevin's out there texting his boo right now. He can't even. He's out there, can't even see me.
Okay, let's talk about dating. My question number one is there such thing, do you believe in such thing as the one? Is there the one out there for you, like the one?
Man, I think that there's some out there. There's ones out there. I think that God has created the one for each and one of us. But I think that before we find the one, you have to go through some. No, don't get too excited.
He's not telling you to go.
I'm not telling you. See, what I am saying is that, at least I really don't know anybody who likes the yellow Starburst. Anybody that's their favorite. Like the yellow Starburst is their favorite. Wow, that's interesting. No, just on the regular. Yeah, pink is the best. All right, yeah, that's great. Yeah. See, there for some that
definitely is a minority.
A minority, yeah. You see, but in the bag of Skittles, right? You don't just eat one color. You kind of got to taste all of them. And then you kind of choose which one is your favorite.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you to go out through your whole year.
Eric, what are we doing? I'm just messing.
I'm just saying, you got to get to know people to find out what you truly like.
Yeah.
See, because we all have this idea of the perfect one. But maybe the perfect one that you have, maybe that perfect one does not like anything about you.
Yeah.
Because we're so focused on our idea of what we want and that perfect one, but we're so far away from seeing the reality of who we are. And God needs to mold us. And we'll go into that later, but to answer your question, do I think that there's just one? I think there is just one, but it will take you some to get to the one sometimes. Yeah. I mean, for other people, you just find the one. You just find it, and then it's perfect. That's great.
Yeah.
Because God didn't want you to go through some because maybe the character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe that there is just one.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
But you will go through some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I agree. Okay, let's get a little bit practical. When do you think is a good teller, a good sign, a good time, a good season to date?
When you're not driving your mom's minivan or your mom's taking you on dates and you have more money than to just go to McDonald's, or you have to stop asking your dad for $20 every date. Those are just a couple. In the reality of things, I think the right time is when God tells you is the right time.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to relationships, we're so based on our emotions. Like, we think it's the skirt with the leggings and his hat that he wears and what they post on their close friends on Instagram. That's a whole nother topic. 'Cause I bet none of your role models are in their close friends. I'll tell you that right now. But I think you have to know, number one, who you are. Because if not, then you're going to try to find yourself through somebody else. And they will never satisfy that. You will always have a void. And I always tell students this. Number one, it has to be God approved, and then it has to be parental approved.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't do things in the dark, because they will come to light. And tip number one for relationships, you can write it down. Remember that Jesus is always with you.
Yeah.
See, I was telling them a story yesterday. Like students who would just lie to their parents, like, hey, I'm going to the gym. They're just going on a bunch of dates. And at one point, the dad's like, man, you've been going to the gym for like 6 months and I don't see you gain an ounce of muscle. And it wasn't no gym sessions with the bros. He was in dating sessions. And I just think that at the end of the day, you just got to remember that Jesus is with you and he sees you.
Yeah.
And he knows, number one, the intentions of your heart.
Yeah.
Are you being led by, see, any guy and any girl, man, especially the guy, y'all can tell the girls the star, you can bring down the stars to them. You get the best lyrics and you become a poet, man. Like you just, man, like I remember this dude at my church, he was just like, I would look at him and I'm like, I would pray like, man, I wonder if he's gonna get any girls, you know, like slower, like he's becoming of age and he's just awkward. And then like 3 months later, he was playing like 3 girls at the same time. I was like, yo, he was telling them he had date nights on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays with 3 different. And I sat down with him and I'm like, what are you doing? Trying to taste the whole rainbow in 1 week? Like what? I was like, and he was just like, well, I was just experimenting which one was gonna fall for me. And I'm like, bro, you ended up all 3 falling for you. I literally had a meeting with him and 3 of his girls, and I would ask him like, well, what was he telling you? He would tell them all the same things. And he literally told me, well, I was just wanting to see which one was gonna fall for it. And I was like, bro, like, the problem is that we're great at speaking words, but when it comes to actions, like, you can tell her the stars and tell her, and then you get to the date and you're just like, you kind of choke in the moment. Why? Because you're good at hiding behind a screen, but when you're in front of a person, you don't know what to do. And it's like, it gets awkward. It gets awkward because this is the barrier of protection in conversation. That's why there's so many people, like I always hear about relationships like, man, he was a great texter, but we just met for the first date and it was just awkward. I'm like, yeah, because he was texting 10 of his buddies on what to say every time he would text him. And I think we have to, and it comes to relationship, remember that Jesus is with you. And then here's another point for you is that you have to have a life outside of your relationship. What I mean by that is I've seen so many times that couples get into relationships and they forget about all their friends, their family. It's only that person. And for like 6 months, they forget about everybody. And then he breaks up with her and they're like, oh, she runs back to her friends. Just kind of, people get tired of that. Because you have to remember that they're a part of your life, but they're not all your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know,
Yeah,
Josh, what do you think? What do you think on that subject?
Yeah. I think Man, I think dating, obviously, like, my perspective is like, first, number one, God, and parents, too. But it's like, my honest perspective is like, if you're not 18, why? Like, why? If you're under 18, like, what? Unless you're trying to get married at 18 or 16 or 17, like, for me, it's like, again, there's a one, and I'm not saying like the person you're dating, it means you're gonna get married. No, but I think I always heard growing up, like, if I'm dating someone, I'm in the back of my mind thinking, can I marry this person? Is this a person? Can this be I was trying to be ministry minded. Is this person going to be a good ministry partner? Is this person going to be, and fill in the blank, are you trying to have a career? Are you trying to be a doctor? Are you trying to be a lawyer? Are you trying to be a musician? Whatever you're trying to be, is this person going to be a good partner for that? Like, having the end goal in mind is marriage. For number one is, so if you're under 18, that it's like, and even further than that, our pastor's like, if you've not graduated college yet, should you be dating? So that's kind of my take on it. Is like, I even tell them, if you're in junior high and you're trying to date, I discourage it 100%.
Yeah.
You're only gonna get hurt. You're only gonna hurt somebody, and they're only gonna hurt you. But have friends, like you said, have friends, have as many friends as you want, have as many friends as you want. But to be in a committed relationship, I think, man, think about it, pray about it, fast about it.
Ask your parents about it.
Ask your parents about it. Here's the biggest thing in my mind. If I can't bring her home for a dinner, I'm not gonna date her. And that tells you a lot. If you're scared, if you're wondering, like, is this the kind of person I would bring to a family dinner? Like, is this the kind of person my parents probably wouldn't like? That tells you a lot. That tells you a lot. If you can't bring them home for a dinner, that tells you, based on like whatever their attitude, their whatever, that tells you a lot. So I want to talk about. You mentioned a little bit ago about boundaries, about having some limits. So when you're ready to date, let's say you're in that stage. I believe here's the two. I love fishing and learning about nature and stuff like that. Rivers, I love rivers, right? There's life, there's beautiful life. There's salmon, which is some of my favorite type of fish to eat. There's beautiful landscapes of rivers, and it's clean. They're see-through, right? You love kayaking and everything and all that. But then there's a swamp, right? Swamps, there's flies, there's gators, there's Grant knows a lot about that. There's moccasins, it smells, it's humid, it's icky, but here's what I found. Here's what I find the biggest difference between a river and a swamp. A river, number one, has direction.
Yeah.
A swamp doesn't have any direction. A river, number two, has boundaries. There's the water in the river is not gonna spill over here. It's going. It's moving. There's limits. A swamp has no boundaries. There's no border. A swamp has no limits. A swamp the water just goes everywhere. It goes, and it's stagnant. It doesn't move, which you can get into biology of. The stagnation is what brings this and that, and it's what's causing all these other things, all these this mess in the swamp. Lack of direction, lack of boundaries. We talked vision, direction. Let's talk about boundaries. What are, when dating, and get as candid as you want, Eric. Get as specific as you want. We're in our living room right now. They're eavesdropping on our conversation. Mm-hmm. What are some boundaries of dating? For example, what not to do, what to do. What do you encourage your students to do? How far is too far? If you even have to ask that, like, let's jump into that conversation.
Well, I'll start with this. You can write this one down, but boundaries reflect values. Boundaries reflect values. And the lines that you draw at the start will leave lasting marks on your relationship. See, you can't create boundaries once you've already broken all these boundaries. So it's hard to do that. It's hard for a relationship to last when you say, I'll put it this way. Once you already grab a cookie from the cookie jar once, and then they tell you not to do it again, like, it's kind of hard not to.
Yeah.
Because you've already broken.
Yeah.
So, depending on your values is the boundaries that you're going to set for your life and for your relationship. Number one, I tell you this, if you're in a relationship, whether you're 18 or younger, or older to a certain extent, right? Like, I don't expect you to be 27 with your 14-year-old brother as your chaperone, but when you're in the younger years, I think it's important that your relationship is it starts off as a friendship. And when you are in a relationship, that your boundaries are set clear on both ends. Have clear direction of where you're trying to go. Because one might be trying to go the opposite way and you might be trying to go the other way. And what that ends up doing, it creates tension and it creates problems. See, I know relationships that have been in more fights than they have been in days in love. They have more fighting days throughout the week than they do loving days. And that's not healthy. That is unhealthy. That's toxic. See, you heard about toxic relationships? Toxic relationships is when you are going in opposite directions. You guys tell yourself you guys want to get to one certain place, but you have different routes to get there. And when you're not in the right mind or in the right spirit or in the right, vision to go, you would just end up in conflicts. And setting boundaries is super important. The number one boundary I tell our students is this. You got to be with somebody. You got to have a chaperone. I don't know if you guys do that, but chaperones are a must. Yeah. Why? Because the enemy's going to attack our minds. The enemy doesn't want us to do good. He wants us to do what? Bad. So when he leaves you in a vulnerable situation, he's going to attack you in your mind. Having a chaperone, and not a chaperone like, hey, can you join me to the bowling alley? And you guys tell your parents, you guys leave together, but then you guys just drop off that third person somewhere. That's happened. I'm just telling you honest, true things that happen. But saying, hey, if my relationship with this person, I can't have somebody else there, then it's not healthy. Your relationship has to be transparent. Yeah. Like, I know relationships that at church, they don't even say hi to each other. Like, it's like if they're ghosts, don't say nothing. Nobody has to know anything. And you see each other at church, God bless you. Don't shake my hand, but you know what I mean. It's like, God bless you. And they're just like, okay. But then in text, they're texting back and forth.
I love you. You're the love of my life. I want to marry you.
Oh my goodness, you look so beautiful today. Wow. Like the way you walk to the cafe. I left you a note in between the napkin holder, just the coffee was on me. Just tell them that you're picking up for, they do that at our church cafe all the time. A young boy will order 2 coffees and be later on, the girl will be I'm picking up a coffee for, whoever it is. And then he's like, that was for you. I just didn't want to make it awkward. That's cute, but it's one of those things. Like Pastor Josh said, if you can't bring that other person around your friends, or you can only post that friend on close friends, and the close friend, it's only them, and make them believe that it's only the group of friends. But I know people like that, it's just they want to live their life hidden, but let me tell you, you can only live a hidden life so far, and it will only lead you so far. But when you set boundaries on who's with you, number 2, boundaries on what you can do and can't do. That's very important. Yeah. What can you do in a relationship? A relationship is to form a friendship to get to know the person. Yeah. Okay, this is important for you. And I think we're all of age to know and to hear that, man, you can grab her hand, right? You grab her hand, You can give her a hug, but be careful how you give her a hug.
Yeah.
Because one thing leads on to the next thing. And that next thing leads on to another thing. I know it's going to get quiet, but Pastor Josh said that we're having a conversation today. And what happens is that we get comfortable if we did it one time. Let's see how far I can extend it the next time around. And we start to use that arrow, hitting the wrong targets. And we start to extend. You pull back just a little bit. And you start going, how much farther can I go back? And believe it or not, it gets to a point where you hit a mark. You get to a mark of, oh, it's okay. Oh, we've gotten to this stage and nobody has found out. And we go, and let me tell you, the more you do it, the more you're hurting yourself. And not just that, the more you are creating a spirit that it will be hard to break. Why do you think some of the hardest breakups? Some people end up so hurt because they were attracted to the person, but you were not attracted to their spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were attracted to their physical and what you could do and the boundaries that you crossed, or you didn't have no boundaries. You went all in.
Yeah.
And now you're attracted and you're trapped in this relationship, and you want to get out, but you can't because your flesh goes back to what it likes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you guys know where I'm getting to and what I'm trying to let you know. And what ends up happening is that this physical attraction is so deep. And this happens in every age group, middle school, high school, and young adults. It happens across the board, that you start to lose self-respect to yourself.
Yeah.
The respect for yourself is like, that's why you can't sleep at night. That's why you get home and you don't even know what lie to tell.
Yeah.
You're like, you start to, you become an impulsive liar because now you're trying to cover up. Oh, how was your outing at the bowling alley? You weren't at the bowling alley. It was great. It was awesome. I hit 6 strikes. You don't even know what lie to say anymore. Like, you start to, one thing leads on to the next thing, and your cover up just, and what happens is that you start to get this, it's a big word here, you start to get this guilt. And guilt is, you can't even live with yourself. Yeah. You go to church and like, you can't even raise up your hand because you know what you did on Friday and Saturday night. Yeah. And pastor's trying to tell you to press through and break through, and you're singing about having a glorious day and freedom in the house, but how can you be free when you're trapping yourself in bondage? Yeah. And we're speaking about freedom, and then what happens is that we get free on Sunday, but we go back to slavery right after church. Some people don't even wait till Monday, it's just back on Sunday. To be honest with you, you can just be texting in church and still living. You can be hearing about the God that can free you and make you better, but you don't have that accountability partner. Yeah. You don't have those boundaries set. Yeah. You don't have any of those things set, man. And then what happens is that you end up trapped. Yeah. And you get so deep in the mess, and you're like, I'm in the mess. I'm so deep in this mess and this that I just rather stay in the mess than call out for help. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That word guilt is a heavy one. Woo! See, it's so heavy it dropped my iPad. Man, that's so good. Boundaries are just so important. I like to think about it this way. My boundary is not a burden, it's a blessing. Yes, that's amazing. Boundaries aren't a burden, they're a blessing. It's something that keeps you not away from something, but for something. Mm-hmm. It's you see God, the word of God. The reason I want to talk about boundaries is because the word of God talks about purity. Now, purity is a big word. Purity it's a spiritual. It could be spiritually. It could be physically. It could be all around. But I want to talk about purity in a dating perspective, but also within within dating. And you see the Bible says the goal is purity, not virginity. Like, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is purity is someone can still be a virgin, but have a perverted heart,
have a wretched heart, have promiscuous a promiscuous mentality. But purity goes above and beyond just virginity. Like, it's not just about staying being a virgin till you're married. It's about being pure, even within your marriage. Like it's what's your heart like? What's your emotions like? Like how, it's not about how far can I take it. It's about, what does God want me to do? It's not what can I get away with, how you were saying, what can I hide about it? No. It's am I being pure to God? Am I being white as snow, as the Bible says? So again, it's not like, oh, I'm doing all these other things with my girlfriend, all these other things, but we're still virgin. Like, no, that's not what it's about. It's about being pure. It's about having the motive, the heart, the values of I'm gonna spend time with my girlfriend, with my boyfriend, but as if Jesus is here, as if Jesus is watching us. And I know you probably heard that, but having Jesus space, as cheesy as it sounds, because it's about purity. It's about purity. The outcome of purity will lead you to all these other things, to respect, to honor. See, I love to tell this, but my wife is the only wife I've ever slept with. My wife, huh? The only person. I'm sorry. The only wife? Well, I've only had one wife, so that's
I wasn't gonna stop you, man, but like, my mind was like, girlfriends? Like,
girlfriends don't count. I'm kidding. No. My wife is the only person. My wife is the only human being.
This ain't making the podcast, I'll tell you that.
Oh man.
No, we understand.
Yeah, no. My wife is the only person, person nowadays. Hey, I ain't getting into that. Is the only person, is the only human being. My wife is the only human being that I've ever slept with, and I can tell you what it's like to be in high school and be tempted. I can tell you what it's like to be in college and have girlfriends and be tempted. I can tell you what it's like to live in an environment where me still being a virgin is mocked, is made fun of, is not seen as cool, quote unquote. But I can also tell you how rewarding it is.
Yeah.
I can also tell you how I see in my spiritual life, in my everyday life, in my ministry, how God has honored that. And I don't say that as boasting, because you don't boast about that when you're in high school. You don't boast about that when you're in college. That's something that's something that comes from just, honestly, I was kind of scared too. No, I'm kidding. But I always heard that from my pastor, from my parents, is don't cheat on your wife before you even know her.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
My body was for Sharan before I even knew who she was. Before I even knew I didn't even know who she was. I met her when I was 20, I think. But my body was for her. My intimacy was for her. Now, we know there's grace, and there's sometimes, maybe you're in this place and you're like, I'm past that point. This is not meant to condemn you. This is not meant to say you're done. This is not meant to say you're trash. No. This is an opportunity to to recommit to God.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity to keep moving forward. This is an opportunity for that. You know, and if I could give some advice to the ladies, one of the things I loved about my wife, we were probably like 6 months into dating, and she was maybe even less, honestly, maybe less. I want to say 3 to 6 months into dating. We were on FaceTime because we were long distance, and she says, "Hey Josh, I just want to be honest with you." She's like, "I want you to know where I'm at, what I want." She's like, "If you're not trying to get married within 2 years, then I just don't want to waste my time." Now,
She had a venue booked, my guy.
she was booked, man. She was ready to go. She knew it. So then, So she had her dress picked out. She had
She had her nails done for 2 years.
She had her nails done for 2 years
ready.
for that proposal day. She was ready. But here's the thing. As a guy, my perspective wasn't, man, that's weird. No. It was like, I value that.
Yeah.
Because if she's not playing around with me, she's not been playing around. I valued that so much that you could say whatever you want about that, but as a guy, I valued that a lot because that told me a lot about the person. I read deeper within that, and it's like, okay, this person knows what they want. This person is dating with a purpose. This person is dating with an end goal in mind. There is a direction. And again, how I was raised, you date to get married. So I'm like, well, same page here, same page. So let's wrap up this dating segment, and we'll start to wrap up. And any last things on dating? You told me when we were talking about the 9 p.m. thing. That with your students back in Vegas. In Vegas, talk to us a little about that. We may pick that on
9 p.m.
With texting.
Oh yeah, we have a cutoff time of texting at my church. I hope they follow it. I mean, I think we kind of have it. And the thing is that late nights turn into early mornings, and nothing good comes from the dark. And after 9 p.m., I don't know what the conversation could possibly be or lead to. And I think we're all tempted. We all get tempted. Some fall easier than others, but at the end of the day, we all get tempted. And I like you at 11 a.m. compared to 11 p.m. It could say the same words, but it could have a way different feeling.
Yeah.
Right, Josh?
Yeah.
I mean, you're beautiful at 2 p.m. and you're beautiful at 2 a.m. Same words, different feeling. Different way of receiving it. And your Twitter fingers just start to kind of you get in your feels because when it's past 9 o'clock, you should be getting ready for bed or in bed. And the enemy will start to try to activate something differently. See, I did a 6-week course, and it's okay. It's all right if I share it with you.
100%.
On breaking the spirit of pornography within young people. And I know I got dead silent, but I'm not scared to speak about it because I believe that the Lord wants you to be delivered from it. See, you enter a relationship with false expectations, with false realities. From what you see is not how it's gonna be. And then you're like, but this is what I see. This is what I think love is. No, that's what lust is.
Yeah.
And God doesn't want you to live with that thought of what you think is love, but it comes straight from hell and from the enemy. And what happens is that when you start to do this whole late night texting, it becomes into late night sexting.
Yeah.
And the enemy wants to keep you a hold in a bondage, trapped like that. But God, that wasn't and has never been his plan for you. But that's the plan that the enemy has schemed to put a trap in you. I want to remind you that pornography is not, and will never come from God. That is a gateway from the enemy and hell itself to pervert the minds of people.
Yes.
In the generation that we live in, statistics are that 8 out of 10 youth from the ages of 11 to 32 watch pornography 5 to 6 times a week. It is a battle that everyone faces, but that nobody talks about. And it goes for boys and girls. But I want to remind you, and I want to encourage you, that God can free you from that.
Yes. Yeah.
That God can deliver you from this, what Pastor Josh was speaking about, having a perverted mind. You could be a virgin, but you can be just as bad but you're so perverted in your mind that anything you see, you talk about, it reflects of what you watch at night.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been around students, and little comments here and there, it shows me what they really do, who they really are.
Yep.
But I promise you that when you get a hold of the Spirit of God, he frees you in your mind, in your thoughts, and he creates a new you in your mind. Because it's a horrible feeling. And I'm sorry that was sweet, but I just feel led to do it. The guilt that you feel after pornography, you feel disgusted with yourself. You feel ashamed. You feel, what am I doing? You feel that momentary pleasure was going to be something lasting, but it just ended up quickly. And now you're trying to find the escape mechanism. And trust me, you can delete it from your history, but it doesn't delete from your spirit until you get to God.
That's good.
And you can use private browsers and do all these things, but God sees you like an open book. And maybe you can fool your leaders and your leadership, but you can't fool God. But I promise you that God wants to deliver you from the perverted thoughts that come from the enemy.
Yeah.
So somebody get on keyboard.
Everyone, we hope that you liked today's episode. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to know whenever we have our next episode come out. And also, do not forget to follow our First Church Instagram, which is First Church YA.
Thank you for listening to the Young Talk podcast, where we talk about Christ and culture. We upload a new episode every Friday, so see you next week.